Hi everybody, Mrs. Calabrese here. Welcome to your very first online math class. I'm so bummed we can't be in the classroom together, but I'm also really excited we have the opportunity to try some online learning. Today we're going to do Unit 7, Lesson 1, so a brand new unit in 6th grade, all about rational numbers. This is the first lesson video for that unit. Just as a reminder, within your Google Classroom, you should have already completed the Welcome to Your Online Class assignment. And all that are these few videos. You should have watched Tips for Online Learning. You should have watched this how-to video that explains a little bit how your math assignments will work. And then you should have completed this practice assignment following the instructions within the practice assignment. The purpose of this is just to show you how you earn full credit on your assignments and how your classes will work. If you've already done those 3 things, then you are in the correct spot. You're going to go ahead and start on Lesson 1. If you haven't already done those 3 things, go ahead and click pause on this video, go do those 3 things, and then come right back here to do Lesson 1. Okay. Awesome. If you are here, you're in the right spot, ready to do Lesson 1. Let's talk a little bit about the materials that you need in order to start class. So I'm going to show you what I have. These are things that you need as well. Under my document camera, I have a pencil and I have some paper. You want to have a way to organize your work. So if you have a notebook, like that's a spiral-bound notebook, that's great because your work stays together and stays organized over time. If you have scratch paper like I do, find a way that you can keep it organized. So I'm going to put mine in a binder. You may also put yours in your accordion folder, for example. Okay. If you don't have these things, go ahead and pause the video and go get them and then meet me back here. Once you have your stuff, go ahead and take a look around your space. Your space should be somewhere that is quiet and distraction-free. So if your phone is next to you, go ahead and move your phone away. If there's a TV in the room and the TV is on, go ahead and shut it off for now while we are in class. That way you can really be focused. Okay. If you need to move your stuff to a place that's quieter or has fewer distractions, go ahead and pause the video and do that now. All right, we are ready to start. So let's go ahead and set up our notes. What I put on my paper, you should also have on your paper. So here we go. This is Unit 7, Lesson 1. Unit 7, Lesson 1 is called Positive and Negative Numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and write that title into my notes. You should do that as well. Positive and negative numbers. All right, and then I'm just going to put the date at the top. This lesson today is March 30th, 2020. Excellent. All right, so now I'm organized. All of my work is going to go on this paper, and any notes that I take about vocabulary or the things that I'm learning are going to go on this paper. And just a reminder also to keep it organized. All right, let's get started. Here is our first problem-solving task of our online class. Really exciting. You ready? All right. So we're going to talk about positive and negative numbers. Our goal today, our objective, is to use positive and negative numbers to describe temperature and elevation. Maybe you already have some ideas about what a positive temperature and elevation could be and what a negative temperature and elevation could be. All right, here's number 1. Here is a table that shows elevations of various cities. Looking at this table, I'm already noticing some things. I'm seeing there are cities over here, and I'm seeing there are also different elevations here. Do you know what elevation is? Elevation is how high above or below sea level you are. So let me just draw a quick example. You should do this too. Let's talk about elevation. let's draw a picture. I want you to draw a few little ocean waves. That is like sea level, okay? If you have ever been to the beach, you know that the ocean meets the beach. And then sometimes the elevation of the land changes. So maybe then I go up on a hill or a mountain or a cliff. Maybe you can already infer this is probably going to be this is going to be a positive elevation. But then maybe that elevation dips back down and even goes below in some kind of valley here, even goes below the original sea level. And then maybe it comes back up, and I'm just going to draw it off the page. Okay, so here is 0. We call that sea level. Sea level is the level of the sea. If I'm over here on top of this hill, I'm going to be at a positive elevation. That's above sea level. And if I've hiked down the mountain and now I'm in this valley, I am at a negative elevation. Okay? Sweet. Let's look back at this problem. All right. So I see an elevation of 320 feet. That is above sea level. So this city is probably up, over in a mountain or something like that. Maybe a hill that isn't actually that far. This one, wow, 5,280 feet above sea level. That's really high. If you've ever been to Denver, you know there's a lot of mountains in Denver. All right, and then I've got some negative elevations here as well. We're going to be talking a lot about these positive and negative elevations today. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the next 4 minutes and I want you to answer these 5 questions. Okay, so I'm going to set myself a timer for 4 minutes. I'm going to do these with you. And after 4 minutes, we'll come back together and review the answers. Okay, just as a heads up, your answer should look something like this. So I'm going to pick the next empty line on my scratch paper. I'm working on question 1A. I don't need to write the question down. I don't need to copy the table. I'll post the Word document for you so you have it if you ever want to look back. But I just want you to write your answer here. Okay? I'm going to do this with you. Here's the questions, and I've got a 4-minute timer. Go ahead. about just under 2 minutes left, 1 minute and 45 seconds left. Last minute. All right, there's our time. So you should have been able to answer questions A through E at this time. Now we'll just review our answers. Number 1A, on the list of cities, which city has the second highest elevation? In order to answer this question, I have to know what city has the highest elevation, and then the second highest is the next one down. So I can see in this table that Denver has the highest elevation. We've talked about that a little bit already. The one that is a little bit lower than that, actually a lot lower than that, is this one right here, Bethel, Indiana. So your paper should look like this. 1A is Bethel, Indiana. If you need to correct your answer, just pause the video now, correct your answer, and then hit play when you're ready to go. All right, B, how would you describe the elevation of Coachella, California in relation to sea level? Here's what I've got. 1B, Coachella, California is 22 feet below sea level. That's a really important phrase that you need to make sure you have in your answer. So if you have that phrase already, excellent work. If you don't have that phrase yet, go ahead and pause the video and make sure you add that into your notes. 1C says, how would you describe the elevation of Death Valley, California in relation to sea level? So Death Valley, California says negative 282 as an elevation. So what that means is that this city called Death Valley is 282 feet below sea level. So that's in my answer. Another thing I added in my answer, let's see, I want to make sure we've got this phrase. So if you don't have that, go ahead and write it in. I also added that this is farther below sea level than Coachella. A lot of the questions that you'll see about this kind of content, negative and positive numbers, ask you to compare. And so that's one thing we're going to keep doing today and this week is comparing different numbers, even though they're negative and new. Really exciting. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and make sure you have this this extra piece in your answer. It didn't explicitly ask for it, so pause the video and go ahead and write that in right now. All right, here is 1D. If you are standing on a beach right next to the ocean, what is your elevation? I think it's helpful to look back at the picture that we drew. If I'm here at the beach, then my elevation is the same as beach, which is sea level. So my answer for 1D is standing on a beach. My elevation is 0 or at sea level. Okay. And the last one so far, 1E, how would you describe the elevation of Miami, Florida? The elevation of Miami, Florida is 0, so that means that Miami, Florida is at sea level. Okay. If you got a question right on the first try, you can show that by putting a little check mark next to the question number. That's optional. If there's anything you need to adjust now, go ahead and pause the video while I have these answers displayed and jot them down. Awesome. The rest of us are going to move on to the next question. Part F did not fit on the page, so we're going to do this one together. Go ahead and put a spot on your paper for 1F. I'll do that as well. All right, let's roll. F. A city has a higher elevation than Coachella, California. Select all numbers that could represent the city's elevation. Be prepared to explain your reasoning. I'm going to read that one more time. A city has a higher elevation than Coachella, California. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is draw a picture. One thing that we use a lot is a vertical number line, and so I want to do that together. So just as a reminder, Coachella, California has an elevation of -22. So let's go ahead and draw a number line. So what I put on my paper, you should put as well. A vertical number line. Vertical means up and down. Let's go ahead and put the elevation of Coachella, California here. That's at -22. So I'm going to go ahead somewhere towards the bottom of my number line. I'm going to put a mark, and let's label that -22 feet. And that is Coachella. Cool. I don't have any other numbers to put on here yet, but I always think it's helpful to put 0 on a number line to help us compare and kind of get our bearings. So I know that if Coachella is below sea level and 0 is sea level, then 0 must be above. So I'm going to go ahead and put 0 here, and I'm going to call that sea level. All right, so the question asked me to find cities that are higher than Coachella. So anything that is on my number line above Coachella, so everything up here, will be higher, and that's going to be an answer that I pick. Anything that is below Coachella is an answer I'm not going to pick. So let's compare some of these cities. All right, select all numbers that could represent the city's elevation. So what do you think? Could -11 feet be a city that's higher than Coachella? Let's see. If I were following my number line and I were going to put -11, I would put it right here. Is that higher than Coachella? Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and write -11 feet. Yes. Okay. Let's do another one. -35 feet. So is a city that has an elevation of -35 feet higher than Coachella? If I were going to put -35, let's see, I got 0, -11, -22, maybe something like this, -35. Is that higher than Coachella? Tis not. All right, -35 feet. I'm going to say no, not higher than Coachella. Go ahead and update your paper. All right, let's look at another one. 4 feet. 4 feet. 4 is positive. So do you think that any city with a positive elevation will be higher than Coachella, California? Totally, right? We know that it is above 0, right? So 4 is somewhere right here, probably even a little closer to 0 than that. But I'm going to go ahead and write 4 feet. Absolutely, that's higher than Coachella. What's next? -8 feet. What do you think? And 0 feet. I'm going to go ahead and do those last two. You can do them as well. -8. And 0 feet. -8 feet and 0 feet. 0 I've already got on my number line. Both are higher than Coachella. Awesome. Here we go. Let's try another question. So we are going to move on to a different problem. This was technically the problem-solving task. We're going to move on to what's technically the guided practice. So I'm going to show you that on my screen. I'm also going to switch over. I'm running out of room on this paper, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to a new piece of paper. When I do that, because I don't have a notebook, I'm just going to make sure I also label the heading of my paper again so that if they get disorganized, I know what they belong to. I am not going to rewrite the name of the lesson. Alrighty. Today is the 30th. All right. Here we go. All right. Here are two tables that show the elevations of highest points on land, think mountain, and lowest points in the ocean. Distances are measured from sea level. All right, so I've got a table here that has some mountains. Maybe you recognize the name of some of these mountains. You've heard of Mount Everest. Maybe you've heard of some of these other ones as well. The continent that they're on, that seems like information I don't think I'm going to need, but it's interesting. And elevations. Wow, look at these really high elevations. These are big mountains. All right, and then I've got a trench. A trench is a word you might know or might not know. Trench is sort of like a valley on land, but a trench is like really deep, almost like a canyon if you've been to the Grand Canyon. And it is underwater. So if you can imagine being in the middle of the ocean, go underwater, and eventually the ocean floor is there. Sometimes the ocean floor has these big trenches. And so these are really, really, really deep, dark parts of the ocean. The Mariana Trench is a really famous one. It is the deepest one, negative 11,033 meters. A meter is even longer than a foot. Wow, that's really deep. Okay, let's look at some of these questions. Here's what I want you to do. Can you go ahead and quickly answer A and B on your own? I'm going to do that too, and then we'll come back together. So I think we just need 1 or 2 minutes to answer these two questions. When I'm ready, we'll come back together. All right, last 20 seconds. Make sure you've answered both parts of the question. It's asking what point is the lowest in the world, so it's like name the point, and then what is its elevation. All right, here's what I've got. I think the lowest point is the Mariana Trench. I gave that hint ahead of time, actually. Negative 11,000 meters. That's the farthest away, the most distance from sea level. And the highest mountain is Everest, 8,848 meters above the sea level. All right, so let's do some more of these together this time. Take a look at C. There are a lot of really good questions here. We're going to talk through them all. C, if you plot the elevations of the mountains and trenches on a vertical number line, what would 0 represent? What would points above 0 represent? And what about points below 0? Cool, this is a great question. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a number line. This is 2C. Go ahead and make your paper look like mine. Okay, on my vertical number line, that wasn't very good. I'm going to try again. Better. Not perfect. On my vertical number line, I'm going to put 0. 0 is a really key part in today's lesson, but also just generally on number lines. 0 is kind of our, in many cases, our starting point or our like benchmark. Here's 0. And the question's asking me, what does 0 represent if I plotted the mountains and the trenches? Let's go ahead and plot one mountain and one trench. Let's plot Everest since I have this on my paper. I'm going to put Everest way up here. This is 8,848. M is meters. This is Everest. And I'm going to put the trench. Remember, the trench is below in the ocean. I'm going to put it way down here, negative 11,033 meters. This is, I'm just going to put Mariana. Awesome. So you could think about it this way too. You could think about here is 0, here is the mountain, and here is that trench underwater. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but this trench and this mountain are not actually next to each other geographically, but it's helpful to think in relation to sea level. All right, so let's answer some of these questions on our paper. We are going to answer, what would 0 represent? 0 has been always representing the same thing in our practice today, sea level. What would points above 0 represent, and points below 0? All right, let's go ahead and write together. Here we go. 0 represents sea level. And then it asked me about the points above and the points below. The points above, 0, represent elevations above sea level. Like mountains. Okay. Maybe you could answer the next one on your own using kind of the same structure. So what are the points below 0 represent on this vertical number line? I'll write it too in case you're stuck. All right, I wrote the points below 0 represent elevations below sea level. Look for that phrase in your answer. If you don't have it, go ahead and add it in. I put like trenches. One thing to note is that being below sea level doesn't mean you need to be underwater. And I just want to remind you, at the very beginning, remember we said you could be at the beach, you could climb up this hill that's next to the beach and have a positive elevation above sea level. And you could kind of walk down into a valley that is below sea level, but not underwater. So there are cities like Death Valley, California, and like Coachella, California, that have these negative elevations that are obviously totally dry. All right, let's go back to our work. And here's our last one, D, which is farther from sea level. Oh, good, we're going to start comparing here. The deepest point in the ocean or the top of the highest mountain in the world. Okay, the deepest point in the ocean, what is that? The deepest point in the ocean is going to be one of these trenches. The deepest point, the one that's farthest down, is going to be the one that has the biggest absolute value. If it were positive, what would be the biggest number? So that's going to be this Mariana Trench right here. That's the deepest point. So this question is asking us, so what's farther from sea level, the deepest point in the ocean or the top of the highest mountain? So let's make some annotations on our diagram. We're thinking about how far apart things are from sea level. So we're going to talk about distance. So let's compare this distance from sea level to the Mariana Trench to this distance, sea level to Mount Everest. How far is it from sea level to the Mariana Trench? It is 11,033 meters from sea level. How far is the top of Mount Everest from sea level? Mount Everest is 8,848 meters from sea level. So which one's farther? All right, let's answer 2D. Let me make sure I have the question right. Which is farther, the deepest point or the top of the highest mountain, and explain. All right, here we go. So I think because this distance is farther, that the deepest point is farther from sea level than the top of the mountain. So here we go. The deepest point in the ocean is farther from sea level than the highest mountain. So there's my answer, and I'm going to explain. The evidence I'm going to use is this distance on my number line. I know this because negative 11,033 is farther from 0 on my number line than 8,848. The deepest point in the ocean is farther from sea level than the highest mountain. I know this because negative 11,033 is farther from 0 on my number line than 8,848. Crushed it. Awesome. All right, team, we're going to go ahead and summarize our thinking. As we do this, I'm going to read the lesson summary and pause us a little bit while I'm reading, because our objective today was about both elevation and temperature. We haven't done a practice problem with temperature together, so I want to make sure we're taking some notes on temperature during the lesson summary. Okay. Here we go. Go ahead and follow along with me. At the end, I'm going to ask you to summarize the lesson in 1 or 2 sentences. So make sure you're paying careful attention. Lesson 1. Positive numbers are numbers that are greater than 0. Negative numbers are numbers that are less than 0. The meaning of a negative number in a context depends on the meaning of 0 in that context. What a great question. What a great sentence. The meaning of a negative number in a context depends on the meaning of 0 in that context. So let me think of an example. If the meaning of 0 here is sea level, then the meaning of a negative number would be below sea level. Cool. Let's talk about temperature. For example, if we measure temperatures in degrees Celsius, then 0 degrees Celsius corresponds to the temperature at which water freezes. Did you know that? 0 degrees Celsius means water is freezing. So if 0, you can look at this thermometer here. If 0 is the temperature of freezing for water, then anything below that would be what? Anything below that would be below freezing. Okay? In this situation, positive temperatures are warmer than the freezing point, and negative temperatures are colder than the freezing point. Read that one more time. In this situation, positive temperatures are warmer than the freezing point, and negative temperatures are colder than the freezing point. A temperature of negative 6 degrees Celsius means that it is 6 degrees away from 0, and it is less than 0. This thermometer shows a temperature of negative 6 degrees Celsius. If the temperature rises a few degrees, so rise means go up. If the temperature rises a few degrees and gets very close to 0 degrees, you can watch my mouse here, without reaching it, the temperature is still a negative number. Okay, so let's jot some notes, because we haven't talked about temperature and I want to make sure you're prepared for your independent practice. I'm going to just put a star and write the word temperature. Two things. Can be positive or negative. If you've ever heard of a temperature that is negative, you probably were not in Phoenix. Negative temperatures are really cold. In fact, lower temperatures are colder. Lower temperatures are colder. And then the inverse of that is true as well. Higher temperatures are what? Higher temperatures are warmer. Right? You know, a day outside that's 100 degrees Fahrenheit is a lot warmer than a day that is 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, very good. Let's go back to our lesson summary. Another example, remember, of negative and positive numbers is elevation, which is a distance above or below sea level. Okay, so this is a nice little picture of sea level. Looks like this dolphin is jumping up out of the water. That's adorable. I've got a shark, and I've got an octopus that's even farther down below sea level. Another example is elevation, which is distance above or below sea level. Remember, that can be positive or negative. An elevation of 0 refers to sea level. Positive elevations are higher than sea level, and negative elevations are lower than sea level. Excellent. All right, last part, team. Go ahead and take a moment to put both of these definitions in your notes. So I'm going to do the same thing. So go ahead and write down what is a negative number and what's a positive number, and include this picture in your notes. Just as a note, team, I'm just writing this part. A negative number is a number less than 0. Okay. You could write the sentence, but actually I think the picture covers it. It says, on a horizontal number line, negative numbers are shown to the left. So instead of writing that sentence, I'm going to draw the picture. If you prefer to write the sentence, do that. And moving on to positive number. I'm just going to write a positive number is a number that's greater than 0. I just want to show you what my notes look like. Awesome. If you need more time to write, go ahead and pause the video. Alrighty, team. So here's what's coming next. It's really important that as we're learning, we are summarizing what we're learning. So what I want you to do when this video is over is go back to Google Classroom and just leave a comment on this assignment that the class can see. That is a 1 to 2 sentence summary of what you learned in the video. So we should see eventually everyone's comments about what you learned. Think about if you were going to explain in 1 or 2 sentences, like a text message, to a friend who had not watched this video yet. What would you say the video was about? What did you learn? Okay, it's kind of like writing your conjecture in math class. Okay, so I'll be reading those. Mr. Zamora will be reading those to see what you learned. A couple of other things that you need to do and a couple of reminders. After you write your lesson summary, you are going to complete the independent practice that's linked also in this assignment. So it has an A assessments logo next to it. You're going to click on it. There's a few questions that you're going to do. Your notes are a really good resource for you as you work on that assignment on your own. I would recommend that if you are able, you try the assignment before 3:15 today. That way, if you realize you have questions, you can hop onto office hours with Mr. Zamora at 3:15. He'll be online from 3:15 to 4:15. So try your best to do the assignment before that. And then if you realize you have a question, go to those office hours. If your schedule is a little bit different and you can't do the assignment till later, but you have a question, then just do your best on your own. and Mr. Zamora will have an opportunity for you to get help tomorrow morning. One other thing that I want to leave you with is my Google Voice number. If you are having trouble figuring out what you're supposed to do, or what you're supposed to click on, or where you comment, I'm going to put my Google Voice number at the bottom of my notes here, and you can write it down as well if you think you might need it. 480-744-7202. Right. So if you have any questions, you can text me. If you have questions that are really quick, like where do I put that comment, things like that. Awesome. Congratulations. You just completed your first online math class. Really exciting. Remember to complete the independent practice, write me a lesson summary in the comments, and then we'll see you here again tomorrow for lesson 2. Have a great day. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.